Well, we're almost about a month into the year, and as we're continuing to add new things into our lives and approach our new goals in 2023, putting a cap on 2022 includes starting to do our taxes. The problem is, when a lot of families and couples are doing their taxes, sometimes they find information they didn't know before, and it can cause some issues within that dynamic. Joining us now to talk about some of the issues that may arise and how you can maybe address them with your loved one is Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, thanks for being with us again today.
Thank you for having me.
So it's our weekly mental health talk, and this is not necessarily on the surface level a mental health topic, but certainly has mental health implications. Tax season is it's a rough time for everybody. It's not exactly something that most people, I would think, have a whole lot of fun doing. And for couples, unfortunately, according to a survey from the U.S. News and World Report, that in 2021 alone, 3 in 10 couples, when they were doing their taxes or in other situations, figured out that there was some financial infidelity issues within that dynamic of that relationship. First off, let's just define financial infidelity, and then we can dive into some different ways that this may affect a relationship.
Sure. Financial infidelity is sort of any form of lying or not disclosing or being deceptive about your financial situation. So like romantic infidelity, it can be arranged where it really depends on the rules and roles in a particular relationship. So where romantic infidelity in one couple can be, texting a coworker inappropriately and go all the way up to a romantic or intimate relationship, financial infidelity can really be the same. It could be just lying or not disclosing all of your purchases, all the way to, emptying your 401k.
And this is something that's obviously going to have an effect on a couple. It's keeping secrets. It is maybe even taking some deceptive action. There are a lot of different ways that this can affect a couple beyond just the financial matters of it, and certainly just beyond the honesty that goes into a quality relationship and the communication that goes into a quality relationship. So let's go to some of the roots of this. What seems to be some of the motivations that may lead someone to be financially unfaithful in these cases?
Sure. Some of them can start out quite innocent. You may make mistakes or, overshoot your budget or something, be slightly irresponsible, and then your guilt or shame may cause you to cover up your tracks. So it can be that, or it can be purposeful and deliberate, acting selfishly and unilaterally for your own needs.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec on today's edition of the Megacast from the Birmingham Maple Clinic. You can find more information and get in contact with them at birminghammaple.com. birminghammaple.com, or call them 248-646-6659. 248-646-6659. And on the other side of financial infidelity, the initial reaction can be anywhere from surprise to feelings of betrayal, or even the ending of that relationship. So when financial infidelity is discovered, as you said, it may be accidental. It may be something that is just someone trying to reclaim some sense of their own independence, maybe, and keeping that from their partner. And in some cases, it may just be an entirely innocent thing that someone is just trying to reclaim. It's not always some nefarious purpose, but sometimes it is. So when financial infidelity is discovered by one person in the relationship or the other, how do you suggest that they best initially address that? Because, as you said, in some cases it might be something innocent, and that may be a conversation that goes a little bit deeper into the dynamics of that relationship. And in other cases, it may be a form of deceit that maybe that relationship isn't the best thing for you to be involved in.
Sure. I mean, for some people, of course, money is for all of us, perhaps it's a very important resource, right? So if one person has more control or power of it in a relationship, the other person can be very harmed. It can be traumatic. It can affect your future and affect your future plans, your fantasies about how you might spend your future or your retirement. So there can be, like you said, grief, loss, and trauma upon the discovery of financial infidelity at certain degrees. And also, I mean, it also can enumerate, like you said, some people may want independence, but it can really highlight the power differential. One person may think something's no big deal, but to another person, it may be a very big deal. Certainly, overcoming it involves the perpetrating party, the party that was deceptive or inappropriate, certainly making a genuine apology. And that's an apology without excuse, not I did this, but you weren't going to let me do it anyways. It has to be a very heartfelt, I'm sorry, what I did was wrong. And for specific behaviors, right? So sometimes with any form of infidelity, there can be sort of successive discretions. It's not just one wrong act, but sort of the wrong act and then the act to cover it up and then the other act to deny it or whatever else. There needs to be apologies and ownership for each of those betrayals because there's more than one, and a step to take to make sure those behaviors don't repeat themselves. So if it was gambling, measures to remove gambling apps from your phone or something like that. If it's a certain store or shopping behavior, acts to not do it, online shopping, whatever it may be, whatever it was that you did wrong, taking steps as a couple to make sure they don't happen again, which means that if there are slip ups along the way, you come clean about those too. It's not easy to stop doing something you've done before, and being aware of that, but not trying to hide it, because hiding it means you have to start over again with apology, ownership, behavior change. And when 1, 2, and 3 are done, the party that's been victimized, the party that's been hurt by your behavior needs to say, okay, we're sufficiently through 1, 2, and 3.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, talking about financial infidelity on today's edition of the Megacast. And regardless of how the financial infidelity is committed by one partner or the other, or maybe even both partners simultaneously, it shows some underlying problem that is present in that relationship, and something is not quite right in that dynamic between one person and another, and that needs to be addressed too, because it's one thing to resolve the financial infidelity, but it doesn't resolve maybe the root issues that go into it. So how is that then addressed on an individual level from one person or another, as well as on a couple wide level?
Sure. Like you said, it can open up a lot of things if there's, like as you said, a power differential. I mean, people think that money must be one of the most common conflicts that couples have, but really it speaks to other deeper conflicts. Is there a power issue between two people? Does one person have more power and control? Is one person more oppressive than the other? Is one person more rigid and one person more loose? Can there be compromises? Are people unaware? What do things cost nowadays? A grocery trip can be quite expensive. Is our budget really match reality? Is the most responsible financial person the person who's also managing the money? And if it isn't, can the other person, the person who is more fiscally responsible, take on one more role in the family? Does it lead to resentment and hurt feelings? Does it lead to shaming and criticism? Right, the relationship behaviors that can really be damaging aren't the money issues themselves, but how people treat each other.
Yeah, and the most damaging effect can just simply be that loss of trust between a couple, and especially when you bring additional factors into the fold, whether it be your shared finances, your shared assets like your house or your cars or whatnot, and then of course your family, or if you have children, that can make that even more complicated, and can also make restoring that trust not just be between these two partners, but also between others involved in your life too. So what do you suggest for these individuals and for these couples and others that may be involved in this to help take those steps to restore that trust and then to maintain that trust as well?
Sure. I always say that when trust is high, supervision can be low. And when trust is low, supervision must be high. So, really hunkering down that, in the beginning, it might mean family meetings. It might mean, exposing, show me your bank account, show me your receipts, show me routine stuff, and if you're the perpetrator, being really open, like, here's my credit card statement, just like you would in financial infidelity, or excuse me, in romantic infidelity. Here's my phone, look at my text messages, you can see plainly I'm not talking with anybody. You would do the same with financial infidelity. Look, here are my accounts, here are my passwords. Look if you want to look, don't look if you don't want to look, but allow for that openness and full disclosure. That is a giant gesture in trust. Sometimes people don't want to look, but having the knowledge that they can is very comforting.
And in that dynamic and in those discussions, those meetings, maybe even couples therapy or family therapy, at what point can a decision then be made by one individual or another that maybe this is not working? What are some of those signs that this dynamic has been broken and it may not be repairable? Because I would imagine, unfortunately, in some cases, that will be how it goes.
Sure. I mean, it can be exceptionally hurtful, and especially if it's successive, and especially if it's done without, like I said, without remorse or without that tenderness. If someone just says, "Look, it's my money, it's my problem, you need to just back off." If the person's unwilling to be, be open and culpable, then that's perhaps a sign that it can't be intertwined and that trust can't exist there. So sometimes it might mean the end of a relationship if a person, like I said, can't kind of do those forgiveness steps and is unwilling. Relationships require trust, and trust requires integrity, which means that a person is doing what they say they're doing. If you're doing something other than what you say you're doing, or you're doing something other than what you believe or purport to be true about yourself, then any relationship's going to be unsuccessful. You're not being authentic in it.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, on today's edition of the Megacast. You can get in contact with them and consult on some of these issues, whether it be financial infidelity or other issues you're having in your relationship, in your family, or even individually. BirminghamMaple.com, and call them 248-646-6659. Carrie, anything else on this topic that we haven't discussed that would be important for our audience to be considering?
Sure. I think that it's not right. It's not just irresponsibility, or it's not just two different attitudes about money that really causes the problem. When you understand yourself and you understand your partner, and you can have gratitude and respect for your differences, and an openness to say, like, of course, if one is more fluid with money and one is more rigid, knowing each other's histories, knowing the family histories, knowing the cultural histories and attitudes about money, can be deeply rewarding, because then you can approach the situation with respect and understanding instead of guilt, shame, and criticism would be the ultimate goal.
Carrie, I appreciate your time and appreciate your insight as always.
Thank you for having me. See you next week.